Before time began, before the world existed, even before darkness had form, sacred beings came into existence. One of them was Olorin. Powerful yet quiet, radiant yet humble. Even among the Ainur, he chose the background. He sought understanding, not domination. He feared Melkor, the darkest power of all. Yet this fear was not weakness. It was the beginning of wisdom. This quiet being would one day become Middle-earth's greatest guide. He was not yet called Gandalf, but his destiny was written. Olorin spent long ages beside Nienna, the silent teacher of sorrow and mourning. Here, he learned that sorrow was not weakness. Carrying the burden of others was true strength. Nienna showed him visions of future suffering, wars, ruin, and despair. Olorin did not turn away from this pain. He welcomed it into his heart. That is why Gandalf was never the most powerful wizard, but the wisest. Darkness was growing. The shadow of Melkor was falling across creation. Olorin saw this darkness, and he feared it, for he understood its power better than most. Others chose to oppose with force. Olorin knew power was not always the answer. His fear did not drive him back. It made him more cautious, more wise. This choice explains why Gandalf would never become arrogant. As the Third Age approached, the Valar gathered once more. Middle-earth was in danger. Sauron was rising again. But the Valar would no longer intervene directly. Instead, guides would be sent, not to rule, but to guide. Olorin refused the task. He believed himself unworthy. He did not deny his fear. But Manwë chose him, for the one who desired power least would guide best. In the Third Age, on a quiet morning, a traveler arrived in Middle-earth. He was no longer Olorin. His power restrained, his body shaped as an old man. His name was Gandalf. He wore grey, belonging fully to no side. He did not come to rule this world. He came to listen, to understand, and to wait. And so the long journey began. Not the journey of a sorcerer, but of a guide. Gandalf spent many silent years researching Middle-earth, studying ancient texts and forgotten legends. Some stories were different from the rest. They echoed with a suppressed evil. Gandalf realized Sauron was not truly gone. The darkness had only been hiding. Fire revealed the truth. This was no ordinary ring. Gandalf was certain now. Sauron was returning, and time was running out. Gandalf loved the hobbits more than any other people of Middle-earth. Quiet, simple, yet pure of heart. In them, he saw not power or ambition, but hope. He was the first to sense something strange about Bilbo's ring. Gandalf knew that the fate of the world is sometimes shaped by the smallest hands. That is why he entrusted the burden to Frodo. True courage lived in the heart, not in strength. Among the Istari, Gandalf trusted Saruman the most. He was the leader of their order. But Saruman chose power over wisdom.
Powers do not urge. Sound is for naught.
His voice was persuasive, but poisonous.
Behind powers do not urge.
Gandalf realized the betrayal too late and paid for it with isolation. But fate was not finished with him yet. The road was dark, but Gandalf knew turning back would be more dangerous. Moria was not just stone and darkness. Something ancient stirred within. And at last, an ancient enemy of fire and shadow stood before him.
You shall not pass!
These words were spoken not only to the Balrog, but to fate itself. Gandalf fell. But this was not defeat. It was sacrifice. Gandalf fell, but death was not an end as we understand it. They battled beyond time and world. Days, weeks, perhaps ages passed. In the end, Gandalf prevailed, but his body could not endure the victory. His spirit left his body and passed beyond the limits of the world. But his task was not yet complete, and so he was sent back. When Gandalf returned, he was no longer the same. The Grey Pilgrim was gone. At first, he did not even remember himself. He had to relearn who he was. His power had grown, yet remained restrained. He was now a leader. His friends did not recognize him until he spoke. Gandalf had become the White and the leader of the Istari. Gandalf was no longer just a wanderer. He was the counselor of kings and commanders.
Minas Tirith at once.
He was the one who freed King Theoden of Rohan from darkness. At Helm's Deep, hope rose with the sun, and with him. He reminded Aragorn of his duty before his sword. For Gandalf did not fight to win wars, but to preserve hope. Gandalf knew it now. Sauron was an enemy obsessed with power. So he gave him exactly what he wanted to see: an open challenge. The Eye of Sauron believed the ring was elsewhere. Meanwhile, the true mission moved in silence. Gandalf knew that sometimes saving the world requires distraction. When the moment came, Middle-earth trembled. The ring was being destroyed. When the Eye of Sauron realized the truth, it was already too late. Gandalf did not shout in victory. This was a victory won in silence. As the darkness faded, the world took its first deep breath. The task was complete, but Gandalf's journey was not yet over. The war was over, the world was saved, and Gandalf's task had come to an end. He left behind not a legend, but a world filled with hope. Gandalf had always known he did not belong to Middle-earth. He sailed toward Valinor, not to death, but to peace. For Gandalf was never just a wizard, he was a guide.